Section 73 of Villette by Charlotte Bronte. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Leanne Fortune, Section 73. I found myself in a good-sized apartment, scrupulously clean, though bare, compared with those I had hitherto seen. The well-scoured boards were carpetless. It contained 2 rows of green benches and desks, with an alley down the centre, terminating in an estrade, a teacher's chair and table, behind them a tableau. On the walls hung 2 maps. In the windows flowered a few hardy plants. In short, here was a miniature class, complete, neat, pleasant. "It is a school, then," said I. "Who keeps it? I never heard of an establishment in this Fauborg." "Will you have the goodness to accept of a few prospectuses for distribution in behalf of a friend of mine?" asked he, taking from his surtout pocket some quires of these documents, and putting them into my hand. I looked, I read, printed in fair characters, "Externe de Demoiselle, Numero 7, Faubourg Clotilde, Directrice, Mademoiselle Lucy Snowe." And what did I say to Monsieur Paul Emanuel? Certain junctures of our lives must always be difficult of recall to memory. Certain points, crises, certain feelings, joys, griefs, and amazements, when reviewed, must strike us as things wilded and whirling, dim as a wheel fast spun. I can no more remember the thoughts or the words of the 10 minutes succeeding this disclosure than I can retrace the experience of my earliest year of life, and yet the first thing distinct to me is the consciousness that I was speaking very fast, repeating over and over again, "Did you do this, Monsieur Paul? Is this your house? Did you furnish it? Did you get these papers printed? Do you mean me? Am I the directress? Is there another Lucy Snowe? Tell me, say something." But he would not speak. His pleased silence, his laughing down look, his attitude, are visible to me now. "How is it? I must know all!" I cried. The packet of papers fell on the floor. He had extended his hand, and I had fastened thereon, oblivious of all else. "Ah, you said I had forgotten you all these weary days," said he. "Poor old Emmanuel! These are the thanks he gets for trudging about 3 mortal weeks, from house painter to upholsterer, from cabinet maker to charwoman. Lucy and Lucy's cot, the sole thoughts in his head." I hardly knew what to do. I first caressed the soft velvet on his cuff, and then I stroked the hand it surrounded. It was his foresight, his goodness, his silent, strong, effective goodness that overpowered me by their proved reality. It was the assurance of his sleepless interest which broke on me like a light from heaven. It was I will dare to say it, his fond, tender look, which now shook me indescribably. In the midst of all, I forced myself to look at the practical. "The trouble!" I cried, "and the cost! Had you money, Monsieur Paul?" "Plenty of money," said he heartily. "The dispersal of my large teaching connection put me in possession of a handsome sum. With part of it I determined to give myself the richest treat that I have known or shall know. I like this. I have reckoned on this hour, day and night lately. I would not come near you because I would not forestall it. Reserve is neither my virtue nor my vice. If I had put myself into your power, and you had begun with your questions of look and lip, 'Where have you been, Monsieur Paul? What have you been doing? What is your mystery?' my solitary first and last secret would presently have unravelled itself in your lap. Now," he pursued, "you shall live here and have a school. You shall employ yourself while I am away. You shall think of me sometimes. You shall mind your health and happiness for my sake. And when I come back—" There he left a blank. I promised to do all he told me. I promised to work hard and willingly. "I will be your faithful steward," I said. I trust at your coming the account will be ready. Monsieur, monsieur, you are too good. In such inadequate language my feelings struggled for expression. They could not get it. Speech, brittle and unmalleable, and cold as ice, dissolved or shivered in the effort. He watched me still. He gently raised his hand to stroke my hair. It touched my lips in passing. I pressed it close. I paid it tribute. He was my king. Royal for me had been that hand's bounty. To offer homage was both a joy and a duty. The afternoon hours were over, and the stiller time of evening shaded the quiet Faubourg. Monsieur Paul claimed my hospitality. Occupied and afoot since morning, he needed refreshment. He said I should offer him chocolate in my pretty gold and white china service. He went out and ordered what was needful from the restaurant. He placed the small gueridon and 2 chairs in the balcony outside the French window under the screening vines. With what shy joy I accepted my part as hostess, arranged the salver, served the benefactor guest. This balcony was in the rear of the house. The gardens of the Faubourg were round us. Fields extended beyond. The air was still, mild and fresh. Above the poplars, the laurels, the cypresses, and the roses, looked up a moon so lovely and so halcyon. The heart trembled under her smile. A star shone subject beside her, with the unemulous ray of pure love. In a large garden near us, a jet rose from a well, and a pale statue leaned over the play of waters. Monsieur Paul talked to me. His voice was so modulated that it mixed harmonious with the silver whisper, the gush, the musical sigh, in which light breeze, fountain, and foliage intoned their lulling vesper. Happy hour! Stay one moment, droop those plumes, rest those wings, incline to mine that brow of heaven, white angel. Let thy light linger, leave its reflection on succeeding clouds. Bequeath its cheer to that time which needs a ray in retrospect. Our meal was simple. The chocolate, the rolls, the plate of fresh summer fruit, cherries and strawberries bedded in green leaves formed the whole. But it was what we both liked better than a feast, and I took a delight inexpressible in tending Monsieur Paul. I asked him whether his friends, Père Silas and Madame Beck, knew what he had done, whether they had seen my house. Mon ami, said he, none knows what I have done, save you and myself. The pleasure is consecrated to us two, unshared and unprofaned. To speak truth, there has been to me in this matter a refinement of enjoyment I would not make vulgar by communication. Besides, smiling, I wanted to prove to Miss Lucy that I could keep a secret. How often has she taunted me with lack of dignified reserve and needful caution? How many times has she saucily insinuated that all my affairs are the secret of Polichinelle? This was true enough. I had not spared him on this point, nor perhaps on any other that was assailable. Magnificent-minded, grand-hearted, dear, faulty little man, you deserved candour, and from me always had it. Continuing my queries, I asked to whom the house belonged, who was my landlord, the amount of my rent. He instantly gave me these particulars in writing. He had foreseen and prepared all things. The house was not Monsieur Paul's, that I guessed. He was hardly the man to become a proprietor. I more than suspected in him a lamentable absence of the saving faculty. He could get but not keep. He needed a treasurer. The tenement, then, belonged to a citizen in the Bastille, a man of substance, Monsieur Paul said. He startled me by adding, "A friend of yours, Miss Lucy, a person who has a most respectful regard for you." And to my pleasant surprise, I found the landlord was none other than Monsieur Maret, the short-tempered and kind-hearted bookseller, who had so kindly found me a seat that eventful night in the park. It seems Monsieur Maret was, in his station, rich, as well as much respected, and possessed several houses in this Faubourg. The rent was moderate, scarce half of what it would have been for a house of equal size nearer the centre of Villette. And then, observed Monsieur Paul, should fortune not favour you, though I think she will, I have the satisfaction to think you are in good hands. Monsieur Maret will not be extortionate. The first year's rent you have already in your savings. Afterwards Miss Lucy must trust God and herself. But now, what will you do for pupils? I must distribute my prospectuses. Right. By way of losing no time, I gave one to Monsieur Maret yesterday. Should you object to beginning with 3 petites bourgeois, the demoiselles Maret? They are at your service. Monsieur, you forget nothing. You are wonderful. Object! It would become me indeed to object. I suppose I hardly expect at the outset to number aristocrats in my little day school. I care not if they never come. I shall be proud to receive Monsieur Maret's daughters. Besides these, pursued he, another pupil offers, who will come daily to take lessons in English, and as she is rich, she will pay handsomely. I mean my goddaughter and ward, Justine Marie Savieux. What is in a name? What in 3 words? Till this moment I had listened with living joy. I had answered with gleeful quickness. A name froze me. 3 words struck me mute. The effect could not be hidden, and indeed I scarce tried to hide it. What now? said Monsieur Paul. Nothing. Nothing. Your countenance changes. Your colour and your very eyes fade. Nothing. You must be ill. You have some suffering. Tell me what. I had nothing to tell. He drew his chair nearer. He did not grow vexed, though I continued silent and icy. He tried to win a word. He entreated with perseverance. He waited with patience. Justine Marie is a good girl, said he, docile and amiable, not quick, but you will like her. I think not. I think she must not come here. Such was my speech. Do you wish to puzzle me? Do you know her? But in truth there is something. Again you are pale as that statue. Rely on Paul Carlos. Tell him the grief. His chair touched mine. His hand, quietly advanced, turned me towards him. Do you know Marie Justine? said he again. The name repronounced by his lips overcame me unaccountably. It did not prostrate. No, it stirred me up, running with haste and heat through my veins, recalling an hour of quick pain, many days and nights of heart-sickness. Near me as he now sat, strongly and closely as he had long twined his life in mine, far as had progressed, and near as was achieved our minds' and affections' assimilation, the very suggestion of interference, of heart-separation, could be heard only with a fermenting excitement, an impetuous throe, a disdainful resolve, an ire, a resistance of which no human eye or cheek could hide the flame, nor any truth-accustomed human tongue curb the cry. I want to tell you something, I said. I want to tell you all. Speak, Lucy, come near, speak. Who prizes you if I do not? Who is your friend, if not Emmanuel? Speak! I spoke. All escaped from my lips. I lacked not words now. Fast I narrated. Fluent I told my tale. It streamed on my tongue. I went back to the night in the park. I mentioned the medicated draught, why it was given, its goading effect, how it had torn rest from under my head, shaken me from my couch, carried me abroad with the lure of a vivid yet solemn fancy, a summer night solitude on turf, under trees, near a deep, cool lakelet. I told the scene realized, the crowd, the masks, the music, the lamps, the splendours, the guns booming afar, the bells sounding on high. All I had encountered I detailed, all I had recognized, heard and seen, how I had beheld and watched himself, how I listened, how much heard, what conjectured, the whole history, in brief, summoned to his confidence, rushed thither, truthful, literal, ardent, bitter. Still, as I narrated, instead of checking, he incited me to proceed. He spurred me by the gesture, the smile, the half-word. Before I had half done, he held both my hands. He consulted my eyes with a most piercing glance. There was something in his face which tended neither to calm nor to put me down. He forgot his own doctrine, he forsook his own system of repression, when I most challenged its exercise. I think I deserved strong reproof, but when have we our deserts? I merited severity, he looked indulgence. To my very self I seemed imperious and unreasonable, for I forbade Justine Marie my door and roof. He smiled, betraying delight, warm, jealous, and haughty. I knew not till now that my nature had such a mood. He gathered me near his heart. I was full of faults. He took them and me all home. For the moment of utmost mutiny he reserved the one deep spell of peace. These words caressed my ear. Lucy, take my love. One day share my life. Be my dearest, first on earth. We walked back to the Rue Facette by moonlight, such moonlight as fell on Eden, shining through the shades of the great garden, and haply gilding a path glorious for a step divine, a presence nameless. Once in their lives, some men and women go back to these first fresh days of our great sire and mother, taste that grand morning's dew, bathe in its sunrise. In the course of the walk I was told how Justine Marie Sauvieux had always been regarded with the affection proper to a daughter, how, with Monsieur Paul's consent, she had been affianced for months to one Heinrich Müller, a wealthy young German merchant, and was to be married in the course of a year. Some of Monsieur Emmanuel's relations and connections would, indeed, it seems, have liked him to marry her, with a view to securing her fortune in the family, but to himself the scheme was repugnant, and the idea totally inadmissible. We reached Madame Beck's door. Jean Baptiste's clock told 9. At this hour, in this house, 18 months since, had this man at my side bent before me, looked into my face and eyes, and arbitered my destiny. This very evening he had again stooped, gazed and decreed. How different the look, how far otherwise the fate! He deemed me born under his star. He seemed to have spread over me its beam like a banner. Once, unknown and unloved, I held him harsh and strange. The low stature, the wiry make, the angles, the darkness, the manner displeased me. Now, penetrated with his influence, and living by his affection, having his worth by intellect, and his goodness by heart, I preferred him before all humanity. We parted. He gave me his pledge, and then his farewell. We parted. The next day he sailed. End of section 73. Recording by Leanne Fortune.